Hey, Dr. Shires, thanks for joining me today via Zoom. We're practicing our social distancing, and I uh, I thought it would be a really good idea for us to connect to talk about mental health, and just talk through some tips and some suggestions you might have for folks in a time like this. And as we were talking before we started recording, this is unlike anything we've ever seen. Like, to your point, it's so open-ended, and so we can't really plan for it. You said we're kind of writing the script as we go, and so obviously the mental health field has been drastically, like many others, impacted by this. But mental health therapy is still being provided. Can you talk a little bit about how that's shifted to this online platform?
Yeah, I would say that one of the good things, if anything good can come out of this virus epidemic and the government's um, recommendations to us, is that they're encouraging people to seek counseling of some kind. Anytime we are in uncharted waters or anytime we're uncertain about anything, our stress levels go up. But then we have the problem of normally counseling is provided in a room with the client. So we're sitting less than sometimes 4 feet apart.
Yeah.
And with the whole idea of 6 feet apart plus social distancing that requires people to shelter in place, that reality is going to be very, very rare that we actually get with people in the same room.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of counseling centers are still open. Many of the therapists are continuing to see clients. They're spacing them out further. So instead of having anybody sitting in the waiting room, they may have 30 to 40 minutes between clients. So they have plenty of time to sanitize, to wipe down things, and take as much of the precautions as necessary. But it's really forcing us as counselors to explore the whole area of telehealth. Unlike medicine, we have been really resistant. In medicine, you can have a 15-minute with a medical doctor or nurse or physician's assistant, and you can discuss your symptoms, and then they can write script or mail it to your local pharmacy. With counselors, we're talking roughly 45 minutes to an hour where we're communicating with the person in front of us. And they're telling us some of their deepest, most private moments in their life, things that they wouldn't want anybody else to know about, not even their family members, not even their friends. So the therapist has become the person who absorbs all the information, keeps it confidential, keeps it private, helps the client walk through all the issues and problems in their life. So when we start looking at telehealth, it's natural for us as therapists to really be concerned about how confidential this whole process is. I know I can see you, you can see me, but then our question is, who else can see us? Who else can hear us?
Right.
So there's some skepticism.
Mm-hmm.
So for mental health, psychology, psychiatry, social work, we have to have what is called HIPAA compliant telehealth platforms. And HIPAA is that federal law that mandates that everything between a patient and their doctor must be private. So we have to maintain strict confidentiality. And nobody has ever been able to prove that even the most secure platforms are totally safe for private information. So, we're slow at it, especially those of us who've been around for so long. We're real skeptical of it. So we've been kind of being drugged kicking and screaming into this technical age. In our office, we just signed up for one of the telehealth platforms that they telling us is very secure. It's pretty expensive. I think that the price, however, doesn't necessarily mean it's more confidential, but it's pretty expensive. It does require a lot on our part to make sure that we're providing the services we're supposed to. And we're finding out that some of our clients don't really want to do it via telehealth. So even though we may go in to do it, a lot of people are just as skeptical as we are. You've been teaching some classes online. I have too.
Yeah.
There's always that process of you're sitting here really focusing on something, and somebody comes and walks in through the room, going from one room to another, or they call you on your phone, or they're knocking on the door because they don't know that you're in session.
Right.
So it's a learning curve, shall I say?
Yeah, without a doubt, it is. And as we were talking beforehand, the pace at which this is happening is just causing so much change, literally overnight, to do things that we've never done before, like this. So I'm curious though, would counseling be considered an essential service? Because I know Orange County and Osceola are under stay-at-home orders as of 11 p.m. tonight, Thursday. But does counseling fall in as an essential?
It does.
Okay.
Especially with the CDC
Okay.
recommendations and the governor and also the president talking about people being able to get counseling, being able to discuss the stressors and get help in dealing with stress.
Yeah.
And we've always been, most all of states were regulated under the state departments of health.
Okay. So you can stay open then as a counseling center. People can still come see you,
yes.
But it's just really going to be at this point a personal decision. Do I want to go out? Do I want to be around people? And if the answer is no, you've got this other telehealth option.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
That's good to know. Because without a doubt, as you started off, people are in need of counseling, probably now more than ever, and they're being encouraged to seek that out. Have you seen a spike, whether that be in new clients or just existing clients needing more help? Or what are you seeing out there?
Unfortunately, there seems to be a drop off.
Wow.
So where we might have one of my associates might see 20 people in a week, right now they may only be able to see 10.
Really?
People are calling in and canceling, and a lot of that's out of the fear of exposure. They're used to it. They're willing to come. They've been coming for sessions. They're in a routine, but the very thought of going and sitting in a waiting room perhaps is scaring them off. And so we try to help them know that we're doing everything we can. We've even, like every medical doctor, we got a sign up that says, if you have any of these symptoms, please do not come into the office, call us instead, and we'll arrange to do your session over telehealth. So they know that there's an option. But just like with so many other things, when people become afraid, the first thing that most people want to do is hide. If I feel that there's a threat out here in the world someplace that I'm not aware of, then the safest place we feel is in our homes. And so we go in, we hunker down, we attempt to keep the outside world out, and all that has a tendency to do is increase the stress level.
Right. For sure. I was going to ask, in a time like this, what are people experiencing? Are they just, is it anxiety? Is it stress? What about someone who is already dealing with maybe a serious mental health issue? Is it exacerbated in a time like this?
Oh, absolutely. Stress is a physiological problem. It's not just a mental problem. Sometimes we fail to recognize that this part of our bodies controls everything else in our bodies. And stress creates release of certain hormones in the body that are very toxic to us. Under normal circumstances, if I feel a major threat, the adrenaline levels go up and my muscles tighten up and I'm ready to fight or run, whatever I need to do, that typical flight or fight syndrome that we go into.
Right.
But when you don't have anything physical you can fight, and you're not given a place that you can run to, all that stays bottled up inside. And we just put layer upon layer upon layer until something has to give. And for some people, that may be a true major physical condition. That's why people often have a heart attack when they're under stress, or have a stroke when they're under stress. So if someone has a mental illness, severe mental illness like bipolar disorder or schizophrenia or anything like that, those stressors build up and it overrides the body's ability to maintain equilibrium. And so more and more of their symptoms begin to come to the surface. And if they're staying home and they're not going to their counselor or to their doctor to discuss those, then obviously when they finally end up going, we're really chasing the symptoms down and trying to catch up where they were before. So, we want to encourage people as much as possible to not put on hold their normal therapeutic process, especially during a time of stress. This is the time we need it the most. And as much as it's a learning curve for us to use telehealth or to use some other media, it's still better than trying to carry it around on ourselves without help. Even from a Christian perspective, that's one of the things that we're, suggested in the scripture is to bear one another's burdens. And as Christian counselors, we recognize that hopefully more than a lot of secular counselors do, but we're here to do that. We're here to help, but we can't help someone who doesn't reach out.
Right. Two-way street, right?
Definitely is.
What else might people be doing right now that's making it worse for them from a mental perspective, or any bad habits that are forming in a time like this that are again just making the problem worse?
Isolating and insulating. Isolating is where we stay, like I said, kind of hunkered down. We stay away from people. We can take social distancing to an extreme, where social distancing means I don't have any social contact. We're made to be social beings. So reaching out, I was watching some of my neighbors taking a walk, and they were doing good about social distancing. They were at least 10 feet apart, but they were carrying on a conversation in the middle of the street, which was excellent.
Yeah.
And even from in here, I could hear one of them laughing. So, that's a real good stress reliever.
Yeah.
Is laughter.
Yeah.
Sense of humor. I think that one of the worst habits that we get into in times like this is we want more information. And so we become news junkies.
Yes.
And we put the TV on 24/7. It's playing in the background. And we're constantly hearing the latest report of the numbers. How many people have the virus now? How many have died? How quick is it passing? And when you keep hearing nothing but that, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. We're going to consistently be feeding that stress, that unknown, that anxiety. And the next news report is not going to be better than the last one. So my recommendation to people is, you need to be informed.
Yeah.
You need to be aware of things that you need to do, but once a day is plenty to get that information.
Yeah.
It's getting it replayed over and over and over again. That constant loop won't get us any better. So maybe a 15-minute news spot just to get some update, and then do something. Exercise, eat healthy, all those things that we know are true in helping us maintain a good lifestyle. We have a tendency to forget during times like this.
Yeah.
And as you and I talked about before we started, we're used to in Florida having those 3 or 4 days where we have to isolate because of hurricanes.
Right.
But within 2 or 3 days, it's passed. We'll go about the cleanup, and life gets back to normal. This is the first time in world history where the entire world is being affected and infected at the same time.
Wow.
And nobody knows where or when this is going to end. So, I use that analogy. It's kind of like we're writing a script for a movie that doesn't, there's no plot line. We don't have the characters. We don't know who the superheroes are going to be and who the villains are. And unfortunately, when that happens, the script keeps going. And quite frankly, the movie is probably not one we'd want to watch when it finally comes out.
Wow. So paint a bright picture there. Yeah,
but we can write a whole different movie. And this is something I recommend, especially parents with children. To draw pictures about it. Draw pictures about brighter days. Read more books. We've kind of gotten out of the habit of reading. I was watching a video from my oldest daughter that lives in Atlanta, where my 2 grandkids are. And they're videoing them all sitting around the table playing games.
Yeah.
Board games.
Yeah.
Getting off the social media for a little bit, sitting down and reconnecting as a family is going to be a great stress reliever.
Yeah.
Especially for kids. Kids have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
As far as they're concerned, it's just been a much longer spring break, and they're kind of happy about that.
Exactly. Kind of enjoying that additional break. They haven't understood the full implications of it all. But no, those are great tips and good perspective on it. And it does just reinforce the uncharted waters that we're in. And I think we love closure, and we love, a beginning and an end and a timeline. And right now there's a lot of uncertainty, and we've got to be comfortable in that uncertainty as best as we can and adjust. So any other just tips? You've already rattled off a number of great ones, but just thinking through again, how do we make sure we're not, kind of going crazy inside? How do we manage the stress well? How do we not let the fear overtake us and cause us to, draw conclusions about things that are going to happen that we have no idea that they are, kind of just the mind can wander, right, and start creating different scenarios. So just curious, any other suggestions?
And we as humans have a tendency to awfulize, catastrophize, and disasterize. So everything becomes far worse than it really is. And with this, we don't know whether we're exaggerating or not at this point.
Right.
I would say that the key elements is maintaining open communication with those that you love. You can do that if you have to social distance. The telephone still works. And probably one of the good things about social media is the fact that we do have something like Zoom, or we do have something where we can sit down and FaceTime and communicate. But also, I think in the communication is we also have to maintain a sense of humor. Sense of humor doesn't mean it's funny. It just means sense of perspective. The ability to not take it to what we think the worst conclusion can be, but maintaining some sense of everything in this world is temporary. None of us get out of it alive. And so even the worst situation, even terminal illnesses eventually end. So if we keep the sense of perspective that no matter how long this may last, there will be an end at some point. Okay. And I think as Christians, it becomes even more important for us to remind ourselves of who actually is in control. So if we're communicating with those who we love, and we make sure that we emphasize our love of God and His Word, then perfect love casts out fear. So now we've got a formula for minimizing how much stress and how high the anxiety may be in our lives. Is that going to be easy? No.
Right.
It's already been hard.
Mm-hmm.
Adjusting for the last 2 or 3 weeks. And it's probably going to go on for at least that much longer, and probably even longer than that.
Mm-hmm.
So communication with those we love, especially God, sense of humor, keeping it in perspective, and not allowing ourselves to free float with all the anxiety.
Those are great. Very practical and very doable. So thank you for sharing. This has been very helpful. Or, as I told you, our goal here at PBA is we're here about, we're about education and equipping students. You're about equipping future counselors. And so I thought it would be a great opportunity for us to just share some perspective based on the expertise we have here at the university, just to encourage people, to give them some tips and tools and help bring some perspective to this situation. So appreciate you being willing to share your expertise. We'll probably check in again soon as things continue to develop.
And I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.